everybody, I'm CoinWeek editor Charles Morgan, and I am here at the Whitman Coin and Collectibles Expo, where I am sitting with Q. David Bowers, one of the most illustrious writers in American numismatics. We are going to sit and talk about the Pogue Collection, its place in history, and how it rates among the other collections that Mr. Bowers has written about over his long and illustrious career. So Dave, you've written about many major collections and sales that have taken place during your career. When you started as a young numismatist, did you ever imagine that you'd be at the center of all of this activity?
No, but I think longevity, I think I've outlived a lot of people. So there's something to be said for showing up, like Cal Ripken and the Orioles. But apart from that, I've enjoyed numismatics ever since I was a kid. I started at age 13 as a kid in 1952, became a dealer in 1953, what they called a vest pocket dealer. I don't know if that term is used anymore, but it was somebody that carried their inventory around, if not in a vest pocket, in a little box in 2x2 envelopes. And the rest of it's history. When I went to Penn State University, I started out in engineering and actually won the freshman prize for mathematics with 4,000 people. And so then I decided that I didn't really want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a coin dealer because the average salary of a graduate engineer was less than I was making part-time as coins. So I went to my advisor and I said, I'd like to switch out over to business and finance. They said, nobody ever switches out of engineering unless they're doing poorly. And I said, well, I'm doing okay, but I really want it. So I graduated in finance and so forth. But anyway, I have been around for a long time and seen a lot of things, and I'm probably one of the relatively few people that remember people who aren't here anymore. The BBs, the Mrs. Norwood was a very good friend of mine, and so on. And it's been a pleasure working with them. Although numismatics has been a business for me and a bottom line thing of necessity, I think I enjoy just as much talking to people about coins, doing research, and whatever. We just learned, or just are putting together, and this will be a scoop for you, the Smithsonian Institution. Whitman is going to be publishing a book on the National Numismatic Collection of the Smithsonian Institution. I'm doing the narrative, and Jeff Garrett is going to do an inventory of the National Numismatic Collection from half cents to double eagles plus colonials and things. And this will be a year or two away, but this is a brand new thing. So anyway, I'm always keeping busy. I'm writing a book on Liberty-seated coins now for Whitman. And then, of course, in the Pogue Collection, which is the focus of today's discussion, that was a great pleasure. We did 2 books on that, and John Krelovich was the lead cataloger, and I worked with John and with other staffers, and this was a great experience. I consider myself, lucky to be a part of it.
So I noticed that the 1822 Half Eagle book bears a striking resemblance to the Garrett collection book that you wrote for Johns Hopkins University. Was that a purposeful homage?
Well, Brent Pogue, the former of the collection, the consignor is always king, okay? And he said, he said, I don't want something splashy. I'd like something conservative that reflects quality and not merchandising and salesmanship. And I'd like to have the book be distinguished looking and sort of formal. And we said, fine, and that's the way it came by. The Garrett book was done with Johns Hopkins University. They, in effect, said the same thing. We want like a book that we could give to an academic colleague, and they would say, gosh, this isn't P.T. Barnum. This is a serious study. So I think Brent would like to think, and I would hope that it might be true, that some of the Pogue books and catalogs would be, in addition to featuring a collection for sale, be seriously numismatic.
Well, you're dealing with a fantastic collection when you have not one, but 2 1804 dollars, and those aren't even the headline coins, because the collection contains a coin that is so rare that it's hardly ever even written about, and that is the 1822 $5 gold coin.
Well, actually, what happened in the 1822 half eagle, the Pogue family specifically requested that I write a book on the 1822 half eagle. I've already written one on the 1804, so that's probably the explanation. The 1804 dollar, the so-called king of American coins, is the finest in existence of the 8 class ones. The only one that doesn't have a single hairline on it, and is probably the glamour coin of the Pogue collection. I mean, it's wonderful, and as I said, I wrote a book about it in 1999, and although I don't own it, I feel it's part of my DNA, this particular coin. I mean, I went around the world traveling with it in my book. So it's very important. The 1822 half eagle, as I mentioned, was done at the specific request of the Pogue family, probably because that was bought at the Garrett sale in 1982, and at the time that represented a super major rarity for them. So for the Pogue family, the 1822 was a landmark. I mean, this was the most expensive coin we had bought up to this time. It's the only one in private hands, and so that has a special significance. And writing the book on it was a lot of fun because it's sort of like the history of American numismatics as focused on the 1822. But if you read it, it tells a lot about other coin dealers and Virgil Brand and people that owned it and how the mint operated. And that was very interesting to do. A lot of information in that book cannot be found in any other book.
So what are your favorites from the collection other than the 1804 dollars and the 1822 $5 gold?
Well, I feel that they're all my pets. You know, it's I like them all, and some of the favorite ones, like the 1829 half dime, is not a $100,000 coin, but it's very historical. It was made. These were first made to lay the cornerstone of the second mint. The 1796 quarter dollar is proof like super gem, and that's been a favorite. A lot of people have said, gosh, I wish I owned that. The 1797 half dollar is beyond incredible in terms of quality, grading quality. What Brent did, which is very unusual in buying. Most people will say, I want to get an MS 65 or a 64 or a 63 or a 66. And Brent said, well, I want to get an MS 65, but I've looked at 5 of them and I don't like any of them, so I haven't bought one yet. Aha, here's one that's sharply struck, and here's one that's has a good eye appeal. I waited 15 years, but I bought a good one. And not many people do that. Mrs. Norweb used to do that. John Pittman used to do that, but the number of collectors over the years that have said grading is important, numerical grade is important, or adjectival before numerical, plus eye appeal plus strike, are very, very few. And the result is a collection, the Pogue collection. If you said what in the Pogue collection is high end, medium end, low end, I'd say, well, I'm not too sure there are any low end coins at all. There maybe upon careful consideration there were some that were bought earlier and are duplicates or something, but everything is everything is a Rembrandt in the Pogue collection.
So you have several more books planned for the Pogue collection. What is the next book that collectors can look forward to seeing?
We're doing a sylogy. A sylogy is a technical term for a museum catalog, like a catalog raisonné, and it was when we did the Bass collection, they wanted scholarship. The Smithsonian Institution under Corey Gilliland put out something called the Sylogy of Early American Gold Coins at the Smithsonian, and I didn't even know how to pronounce sylogy, S-Y-L-L-O-G-E, but anyway, it's like a technical study, and I guess the idea of that is that if you look at it, you're not gonna see any cartoons. It's gonna tell you anything you wanted to know technically, and so it'll be a sylogy of the Brent Pogue collection, and it will list all 650 some of the coins. It will have a picture of each one. It'll tell its provenance or pedigree, and will tell technical information. You know, its numerical grade. It's a bit about its history. There will necessarily be more on the 1804 dollar in the book than on the 1832 half dime or something. But everything will have its picture, and we're working on that now. It will also talk about life in America from 1792, the 1792 half Disney, up to the 1830s, and it's I started out in this last year, but more recently, I've been reading in popular media that the typical American college graduate, if you say when did the Civil War begin and end, or who is General Cornwallis or something of the British troop, they wouldn't even recognize the name, and so I think having American history in context, so you can say, here's what's going on. In 1796, Washington gave his farewell address, and that was the first popular presidential election we had, and here's who ran, and we had the War of 1812, and we had all these things that were happening. We had coin shortages, we had economic setbacks, and it's all part of why coins are minted. It's why in 1804 they stopped making silver dollars and eagles, because they were all being exported, and most people don't know that. So I find that infinitely interesting, and that'll be part of the Siligy.
After the Pogue collection is sold and we have some distance, how do you think collectors will look back at this collection and compare it to other great collections that were sold in the 19th and 20th centuries?
Well, all the collections are different. I think it's like writing about 5 presidents or 5 movie stars. If you write about Clark Gable, you don't write the same thing you write about Meryl Streep, okay? But I think each one of these stands on its own. Like the Eliasberg collection cannot be compared to the Pogue collection, and the Pogue collection cannot be compared to the Eliasberg collection. They're all different, but I think this suite of catalogs, which will probably be 7 distinct auction catalogs, plus the book on the 1822 Half Eagle, plus the 100 favorite Pogue collection coins, plus the Siligy. You have 3 books and 7 catalogs. That'll be a space on a library shelf, let's say occupying a foot of space or whatever it does, that if somebody consults 50 years from now, they'll be able to learn a lot about coins, what was in the collection, about Brent Pogue personally, and it's a window on history. I think it'll become a standard reference. I mean, certainly like the Garrett collection, which is history now, that's referred to constantly, or the Eliasberg collection.
They say that coin collections are a window into the soul of the collector. What do you think the Pogue collection as a whole says about the Pogues and their pursuit of early American coins?
Well, I think it says about Brent particularly is that Brent practiced connoisseurship. Not everybody practices connoisseurship. That's the grade was important, but as I mentioned earlier, also eye appeal is very important. He would not buy a high grade coin with poor eye appeal. So if you had to weed out from the current catalog we're working on now, or that's published now for the May sale, what coins are ugly, I'd have to say there aren't any, which is sort of distinct. I mean, normally you'd say, you can look at any past catalog and say, well, this one didn't have good eye appeal, this one didn't either, but this one does. So you have a very high degree of connoisseurship. I say, if there's one word that embodies Brent's objective, it would be connoisseurship, okay?
So Dave, do you think we're ever going to see a collection of this stature again?
I doubt it, and Brent himself doesn't think, because Brent spent like 40 years doing it in an era in which the Eliasberg collection, the Norweb collection, the Bass collection, the Child's collection, a lot of the things we handled from Virgil Brand came on the market, and these old-time collections, there aren't many old-time collections waiting in the wings now to come on the market. Right. They have come on the market, or they're in the process of coming, and I think if no matter what money someone has, the availability might be the problem. They had 40 years of connoisseurship, nearly 40 years, plus the financial wherewithal to buy what they wanted. And I think if Bill Gates, for example, or somebody else wanted to Saudi Arabian prince wanted to have the finest collection of United States coins possible. They couldn't do it. They couldn't match the Pogue collection, even if they had 50 years to do it.
Are we at the point now where collectors, high-end collectors, can go into collecting a series and have perfect knowledge about the finest coins that are in existence?
Sort of hard to have perfect knowledge. For example, I'm writing a book on Liberty seated coins for Whitman, and the 1870S half dime, which is unique, started out AU 55, then it was NGC 63. Presently, it's PCGS MS 64. I heard. When I cataloged as a guest cataloger for Christie's in 1999 or 2000, Chris Karstedt and I were involved in the publicity for the SS Central America along with Dwight Manley and the Goldbergs. They asked me to guest catalog the first SSCA coin. So there was something called an 1853/2 double eagle from the Central America. It was certified as MS or AU 58, okay, on day one.
Okay.
It was put in the auction 2 months later. It was sent back to the same certification service after the auction and came back as MS 62. So it graduated 4 points in like 2 months. So how can you build a scientific? How can you compare? You have X and Y axes, each moving in motion. Okay, so I'm not too sure that anyone can do anything absolute. I mean, at today's MS, how many coins in Eliasberg were graded at the time? MS 64, which are MS 65, 5 or 6 now. How many coins from the Farouk collection, pattern coins in copper that were cleaned by King Farouk, so they were bright orange, and were bought as bright orange by Harry Bass and sold by the Bass estate as bright orange, which are now been reconstituted and are certified without any mention of being cleaned as proof 64 or 5. So, I mean, I believe in conservation, by the way. I'm one of the, I believe that if you collect autographs or something and you have a Washington document, you could say, okay, skillfully repaired at the edge. The National Archives would do this. In coins, if you said, well, a spot is removed from the left field, it's net and so forth, and it's given something like it's not valuable, I don't think that's right. I think there's some conservation has a point. But at the same time, I think conservation, I'm digressing a little bit, conservation needs to be explained, but not viewed as a negative. For example, all the coins from Central America were nicely conserved to everybody's satisfaction by removing material that adhered to its surface. So we're a little off track here, I am, but
Sure.
But the purpose is it's very hard to compare. If you said, how did the coins in the Jones collection that are going to be auctioned, the hypothetical collection this year, compared to those in the Dunham collection in 1941, there's no way of comparing them.
Right, right. And Dave, what do you think the atmosphere is going to be like on May 19th on the sales floor when the first coins come up for offer?
Well, you never know. It's very interesting. The world is changing, and we've had the American Numismatic Association auctions in the past several years, and it's not unusual for us or for our illustrious competitors to have a convention sale of rare things and see 3 people in the audience or 5 people, and yet record price. Well, let me tell a story about the Dice Hicks collection of Hard Times tokens, the finest collection of Hard Times tokens ever auctioned. We auctioned it a few years ago, and one of the principals of our company called up and said, what kind of attendance do you have? And I said, well, there were 9 people in the audience, but one of them just went to the men's room, so now we have 8.
Right.
So after the sale, I said, well, how did it do? Well, it brought like double estimate and broke every record. So I think in whatever people are there to be part of the event, there'll probably be a huge worldwide internet audience. Thousands of people following it on the internet, which
Right.
we didn't have like when we did the Norweb collection or the Eliasberg collection.
Well, if you can imagine an auction in the 60s, if only 8 people showed up, it probably wouldn't be.
Oh, you'd say, oh no, we used to say Eliasberg, well, we put in 80 chairs. Now we have to call for more chairs. No, it's standing room only around the back.
Right.
Those were the days of yore, you know.
Right. Well, Dave, I appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with the sale and the lecture you're going to give. We look forward to watching.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all you and Dave Lasso do for numismatics. I think that, you know, you're reaching into a new generation, a new era of popularizing the hobby worldwide, and what you do is very important, and I congratulate you on doing it. And thank you for having me as a guest.
And with that, I'm Charles Morgan, signing off from Baltimore. Happy collecting.